Let's talk about players who are on the roster bubble. It's almost time to make cuts, so I want to talk about a couple of guys that are probably going to make the team, some guys I'm not sure about, and guys that are either off the team or on the practice squad. So, guys that I have making the team, there are two of them that I have on this list, and it's Amari Rogers and Segan Alubi. I have Amari Rogers here because he can do multiple things. He can play receiver, he can play special teams, and having that kind of versatility is valuable to the team. When you look at who he's going up against, like in terms of competition to make the roster, he has more versatility than everybody. He has more experience. And the one guy that he might be competing with for a roster spot would be Brashad Perriman. But Amari Rodgers can do more than Brashad Perriman because how much experience does Brashad Perriman have on special teams? Amari Rodgers can easily slot into a special teams role if they needed him to, right? Like Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie might be taking those. So, for all intents and purposes, Amari Rodgers might not make the team. But I'm thinking as I look through and try to figure out who the 53 are going to be, I think Amari Rodgers is going to be one of those guys. And again, I mentioned Segan Alubi. He's a guy that has been making a lot of plays in training camp. But then you look at the other guys, and we will. But Segan Alubi is just above everybody else. His development after he's spent time on the practice squad last year, everything he's done, like it's showing up, and it showed up in the game. He right now he's out of practice with a concussion. He got a concussion in the game against the Bills, but up to the point where he got the concussion, he was playing well. And again, he's been performing well throughout training camp. So he's a guy that I think is concrete to make the team above a lot of the other linebackers that are on the list. Okay, and then guys that I'm just not sure about for various reasons, right? So Sam Ellinger, starting with Sam Ellinger, I'm not sure about him because I don't know how they're going to want to construct the team, right? There was a time where the Colts under Frank Reich, they were only carrying two quarterbacks. And then down the line, because of the Colts quarterback situation, injuries that had happened, like they started carrying three during Frank Reich's tenures. And it'll be interesting. A lot of teams carry two, especially if you have like a concrete guy at quarterback. A lot of teams only carry two. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Sam. But I think maybe because of Anthony Richardson's play style and the inherent injury risk that accompanies that, there's a chance that they keep three just, for injury's sake and the offensive line because of the way the offensive line performed last year. Do they want to keep Sam again because of injuries? In my opinion, I think you give one of the roster spots to a running back instead of giving it to Sam because some of the guys that I'm not sure about are Jake Funk, Kenyon Drake, and Jason Huntley. Okay. Three running backs on this list. And if you look at the running backs currently on the roster, you have Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, Evan Hull, and then these three guys. Now, we obviously don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. Is he going to play for us this year? Is he going to play for somebody else? Is he going to play at all? We don't know if Jonathan Taylor is going to be around. We know Zach Moss isn't going to be around for the first few weeks of the season. So Deion Jackson, concrete to make the team. We know what he can do. Evan Hull has been impressing people and even started the game against the Bills on Saturday. So Evan Hull definitely going to make the team. So you look at these other guys and you look at, Zach Moss definitely going to make the team, right? He's just not going to be there the first couple weeks. So what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor? And then you look at Jake Funk, Kenyon Drake, Jason Huntley. Obviously, Kenyon Drake would be like the obvious choice in my opinion because of his experience. But Jake Funk has experience in this locker room, and both Jake Funk and Jason Huntley got into the end zone in the preseason game. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they work out in this next preseason game and how the running back situation is looking. And I'll have a better idea of how specifically this running back situation is going to look after the preseason game. But my guess right now, if I really had to put a guess on it, I'd say the running backs going into the season would be Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, Evan Hull, and Kenyon Drake. Okay, and a couple receivers I'm not sure about are Jawan Winfrey and Malik Turner. These are names that I've heard a couple times throughout training camp making a couple plays. But the reason I'm not sure about them is because I'm not sure about their versatility and how they'll perform on special teams and how do they look in practice on special teams. So I'm more so leaning that they might not make the team But again, wide receiver is a depth position too, so you might keep these guys on the roster, or at least one of these guys. And if they were going to keep one of these guys, it'd probably be Jawan Winfrey, if I had to guess. But again, these are all guys that I'm not sure of. The last offensive guy I'm not sure of is Nick Eubanks. On the unofficial depth chart that the Colts put out for the preseason week 2, he's above guys like Farrell Brown and Ricky Seals-Jones. So not real sure what to think of him. I'll pay attention. And then next week, after I have a better idea of, what he brings to the table, both from offense and special teams, I'll make sure to have an update for him and what I think he specifically will be doing. These guys I'm not sure of are guys that I'm going to be looking more into to see, what are they doing? And because having to make the 53 is coming up. So these are guys that could be like unsung heroes on this team. Special teams for the Colts has been really good for years. So picking out these depth pieces, isn't going to be easy. You got to figure out who's playing special teams. That's really what most of these guys will be doing, which is why JoJo Domann is a guy that I'm not sure about. He's a good special teamer, but there's so much depth at the linebacker position on this team, right? Like you look at guys that are here. We have Shaq Leonard, EJ Speed, Grant Stewart, like basically guaranteed to make the team with what he just put on film on Saturday. Segan Alubi, probably making the team. Zaire Franklin, Cameron McGrone, who's another good special teamer. And at the moment, he's above JoJo Domann in the linebacker depth chart. So JoJo Domann, with everything the Colts are working with, he might be on the outs. But again, he's a good special teamer, and there's reason to keep him on the team. So this one I'm not sure about. Again, going to be watching to see how they deploy him in the preseason game and see what I can pick up on Saturday against the Bears. And the last guy I'm not sure about is Tony Brown, for all the same reasons I just said about JoJo Domann. He's been here for a little while, and I could see him making the team, but with all the draft picks that came in, like the corners, DJ Baker, definitely making the team. Like he's a starter right now. Juju Brents could be a starter at some point. Then you have Kenny Moore, of course. Dallas Flowers definitely making the team. And Darius Rush and Jalen Jones just got drafted and are both for sure making the team. So this is another place where who's staying and who's going. And Tony Brown is a guy that I'm not sure about. Okay, more context on some of these guys I'm not sure about will come from the guys that are probably off the team or on the practice squad. Okay, so we were just talking about Tony Brown, and one of the reasons I'm not sure about Tony Brown is because of guys like Kevin Tolliver and Chris Lamons that are on the roster. And these are guys that play special teams. Definitely like Kevin Tolliver, if he's in the game at corner, like you're in a terrible spot at corner. So from that aspect, not making the team. And from a special team aspect, I feel like Tony Brown is a better special teamer than Kevin Tolliver. So in my opinion, Kevin Tolliver is not going to make the team. And in my opinion, Chris Lamons won't make the team because of his suspension and because, he's another guy, if he's on the field during a real game, then like you're in a bad spot on defense. So those are two guys that I think are off. Other guys that I think are going to be off the squad, sticking to defense, Trevor Dimbo. We just signed Ronnie Harrison, and with what we have at safety with Julian Blackmon, Rodney Thomas, Nick Cross, and now Ronnie Harrison, like I just don't see a reason why you would keep Trevor Dimbo. Like he misses tackles all the time on special teams, on defense. He did it last year. He does it like he did it in Saturday's game. Like Trevor Dimbo shouldn't be on this team anymore. So he's a guy that I think is going to be gone. Okay, and then the offensive side is actually where I have a lot of guys, mainly because there are so many freaking tight ends on this team, right? And Farrell Brown, from what he put on tape Saturday, I don't think he's going to be on the team. I've heard beat writers talk about how, there are plays in practice where like Farrell Brown's just not doing things right. So Farrell Brown probably not going to be on the team. A guy that I was kind of hoping would work out, but he's buried on the depth chart right now is Ricky Seals-Jones. Haven't really heard anything about him doing anything in training camp. He didn't have any flash on Saturday in the game against the Bills, so it just makes sense. Ricky Seals-Jones had a couple of good years, but he won't be making this team and playing for this team this year. And then Michael Jacobson. Everything I just said about Ricky Seals-Jones, I could say about him. Haven't heard anything about him. Didn't flash. He's another tight end that'll probably bite the dust when they have to make roster cuts. Okay, and I already mentioned Brashad Perriman, right? Probably off the team, doesn't have enough versatility. And then the last guy is Emil Ekiyor, who the Colts gave time to develop and try to get better because they knew they needed a right guard, and he was really bad in the game against the Bills. So he's a guy that I think definitely not going to make the team. Right guard is still a problem, but when you're making roster cuts, there are other guys on the team that I think have other versatility and could slot in if they really needed them to. So Emil is the last guy that I have on this list, and I'd like to know, what do you think of this list? Is there anything that surprised you? Is there anything that you think differently? You let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications on. We have joint practice with the Bears tonight and tomorrow, and I'll have updates on that practices and things we should know coming out of those practices on Thursday and Friday for you. So with that, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.